Epic Guy Randy here, and we're coming up on my favorite holiday, Halloween. This year I'm going to try to make a couple of more headstones and kind of explain to you exactly how I do this. So the first thing that you actually need, and what the material that I like to make them out of, is 2-inch thick insulation. You can get styrofoam this thick, but the cellular nature of it isn't good. Once you start cutting it leaves kind of some odd patterns. This is fabulous. It's almost like solid core production movie type of stuff. But you can make it any size because these things are really a 4x8 sheet of the material. That's really, really big for a headstone. For the average size, I usually cut these down to 2 feet by 4 feet. So one of these 4x8 sheets will actually make 4 of the headstones that I usually do on Halloween. So I'm going to mark this out and cut it into fourths, and we'll get started. So now I have cut my foam down. You can use a regular wood saw for that, or just about anything. Mark that off. Now the one I'm going to try to duplicate today is a Celtic headstone that I had made a few years ago, and I just need to put it up here to get the pattern on it. You can really make any pattern that you want. You can make square ones. I've got them that are just oval on the top. I'll probably take a picture of all of them I've got before we're done. But this one's a little intricate and kind of neat. So, right now we're just roughing in the pattern. You can really do this any way you want. Sharpies work great, but it does not have to be exact because this thing is still going to change so much before you're done. There we go. Now we have our pattern down. Now we need to cut this out so that we can start aging it and other things. Now that we have our foam marked out, now we need to cut out the design. And you can do that with just about any tool you have. A saber saw, a regular saw, a coping saw, whatever. Most things leave little junk like this, but it does tend to get messy. They're a little bit staticky and will stick to everything. So they actually, in the manufacture of this, use a foam cutter, and you can buy them at hobby stores and whatnot, but you can buy little foam cutters like this that actually run on a couple of big C batteries, and it just heats up this wire so that you can actually come in and literally just, carve whatever kind of shapes you want. Now with our foam cutter, we've managed to rough out the shape. Now this is still very, very rough. We're going to age it, we're going to be carving into it, so it's perfectly fine for it to look like a beaver did it. Now that we have the headstone rough cut out, we need to mount it to its pole. The easiest way to make these things stand up on their own is to run a piece of conduit up inside right through the middle. They're very, very light, but the wind does tend to blow them around. But the only way that I've ever found to be able to do this easily and without destroying the rest of this is by melting it with a piece of hot conduit. I've never been able to drill a hole in it. I've never been able to try to cut a hole in it. Nothing really that I've found works as well as what I'm about to show you. Now, you are cutting a hole about 6-8 inches deep, so you've got to get this hot enough, far enough down the pipe that you can insert it that length without it really snagging or cooling it off. Now, you just take this, you want to kind of eyeball it so it looks good and straight right in the middle, and you just kind of press it in. That should do it. Let's see how far. Oh, watch out! I don't want to set you on fire. Mr. Camera in there. That goes in there. Not that far. That's just about perfect for this size headstone. I need to put a little more detail into the surface of this. We're going to do that with a Dremel, and basically just make the rest of the design here that I have on this one. I've I've got to draw this more or less half Celtic symbol here, not really Celtic symbol, but so that we can embed it into here. Just got to build some geometric stuff across the face of it. Now, it doesn't really matter what you do to this because we're still going to age it and it's going to ruin any other writing you have on it. So it doesn't really matter what's going on here. Even the surface doesn't have to be perfect. I've got some dents here. All that's going to be gone. That's why it works fabulous. Actually, one thing you might try to do, which I did with my originals, if you can find secondhand foam, like off the truck that's got big dents in it and stuff, get it, because it doesn't matter. I actually got huge discounts on my first couple of sets of foam for these things because they had defects. And for what we're doing, we don't care. Okay. That gets me cross-reference and a real easy way to find my center. Now this isn't the perfect center, but it's going to be close enough for what we're doing. Okay. Now you want to take a nail. It can go all the way through, doesn't really matter. When you paint it, that hole will get filled anyway. I'm just going to put that right there. A little length of string. On there. Just going to make a little protractor compass set for yourself. Now you need to make sure you leave this out enough that the string spins on the nail, otherwise you're going to spiral in and that sucks. So let's take this. I'm just going to kind of gauge that at about 2 inches in, so I need this to run the distance from about here to here, from here to here. Just kind of give it a good eyeball there. Now, let's hit that there. Grab the edge of this, and literally walk it around the circle there. I need to use a Dremel to actually rat out these little corner pieces. You can use whatever you have. You could actually almost use a spoon or a steak knife and a fork, doesn't really matter because you're still going to age it. So anything you can use to remove material here and kind of recess it, that's all you're looking for. So I've outfitted my Dremel and my routing attachment here, and now we can start recessing these extra little spots. Now we just need to do that 3 more times. Now we've routed out the recessed areas of the face of the headstone, and 2 or 3 of the aged cracks that I tried to do originally I was never happy with. So I'm trying a little bit more of an effect here of routing them in first, and then this aging process I'm going to show you should actually blend them in very, very well. Aging the surface of this is really, really simple. You do it with heat using a little blowtorch, but you need a spray bottle of water also. And the spray bottle of water acts as a protective layer to the surface so that the heat only melts the foam where the water isn't. Let's do it. Yeah. Before you get started, you do want to use one of your scrap pieces of foam and just get a feel for what this heat's going to do to the surface. Because if you just hold it right on there, it's just, this stuff is flammable, it's going to melt right away. So you're looking for almost just a glazing like that, and the water will protect it and it won't shrink back, but you got to get your distance right. So now, starting in the corner of this, I'm going to start waving it, keep it moving.
That's amazing.
the sides, they kind of get a little bit of it as you go along, but all you really got to do to them is just hit them once here. The water really won't stick and nobody ever really sees them. Just want to make them look a little archaic.
So that's why it's okay to leave sort of the ridges when you cut it, because you're going to melt them in anyway. Yeah.
And I think that looks pretty good for the front side. So you can do the back side. You don't have to. It's whatever you want to do. I tend to like things to be three-dimensional, so I'm going to do the back side. And there you have the finished, aged base of the headstone. We've still got a few more things we're going to do. Right now, I've got to let that water dry, and then we're going to paint it. So we're ready to give our new headstone a paint job. Now, first you want to lay down, and this really depends on how you want it to look like. You need two different colors. You're going to dry brush a contrasting color. So you can either paint it light and dry brush it dark, or paint it dark and dry brush it light. It's whatever you want it to look like. But since most of this is going to be at night, I tend to like painting it light and then dry brushing it dark. Get that paint in. Otherwise you get little pink spots. Have our base color on. Now I just need to dry brush it with a darker color to bring out the details. You want to get almost as little paint on your brush as possible, and if you get a whole lot, you gotta scrape it back off. Because all you're trying to do is that you're looking for just something to hit the highlights across the surface, so that it's not you're not trying to change the color, you're trying to accent the color. To mount the headstones in your yard, you need to take the conduit that you were using to melt the hole and cut it into a piece about 6 inches longer than the hole was deep. You don't want to pound it too far into the yard because you'll never get it out, but you need to have enough there so that it's got good support and still sticks far enough into the headstone. And there you have our finished headstone. You can route a name in below or some saying, or you can just write it on with some dark gray or black paint. But that's pretty much it. Have a happy Halloween.